All right, so we're mostly going to be working with even fabrics or even striped fabrics. So how do you determine if they're even striped or where the stripes are and everything like that? What you want to look at is the selvage edge, because you know when you are doing your patterns, you have to line up that arrow on your pattern and have it parallel to the selvage edge. So for instance, this striped fabric is an even striped fabric. Even though your eyes kind of trick you with the different colors, this is evenly striped. There is no variation in the width of the stripes that are on here. Okay, all of them are the same size. The selvage edge is here. This is the selvage edge. Okay, you know that because it has a little it usually has a white or beige outline here, and then you can see some of the you see that whiter beige selvage right there, and then you can see some of the machinery lines that they use to put the fabric together. Okay, so anyways, that will also, if you're dealing with knits, that will also determine the stretch, and more than likely your pattern needs to have the most stretch out of your fabric in order for the pattern to fit you well. All right, so this tells me that these stripes here are horizontal stripes, meaning they go across your body. Now this fabric right here, you would think, and you probably will, I want it to be horizontal, but it's actually a vertical striped fabric. All right, the selvage edge runs along here. Oop. The selvage edge runs along here, and the stripes are going horizontally. Okay, they're going horizontally across the pattern. There's a lot of stretch here, so you'll be lining it up that way. All right, it has a lot more stretch across the lines going this way, where all the lines are vertical. All right, now then you have your, I would consider this uneven, but you can also use it as even because the repeating is, it has the two lines that designate the pattern are even. So you can kind of use this as an even fabric, and this again is going to be horizontal because the selvage edge is here and the stripes are running perpendicular to the selvage edge. So this is how you would use this one, and plus most of the stretch is horizontally anyway. But with this one, you want to just focus on these two lines that are repeating, okay, and just act like this is one whole stripe if you want to use this as in, or cut this in the same way that you would cut even stripes. Okay, all right, so you can use a lot of the fabrics that you find in. Okay, so we're going to work with this fabric a little bit, and we are going to say that this is our even stripe fabric. So what I would like to do is line up, whenever I'm using something or cutting something on the fold, I want you all to make sure that you are lining up with something that is evenly straight or perfectly straight. Okay, I like to use my cutting mat. You can even use the lines on your floor. You can, use something that you can line up that fold with, because that will help you have even and straight fabric when you're cutting it. Because if you were to cut it like this, or your fold was a little bit off like that, it will cause, because you didn't even see it, it'll cause wrinkles in the fit, and it will not fit properly. Okay, and that will also hinder you from lining up the straights from the back piece to the front piece, because everything will be off. Okay, so you want to use some continuity or a tool that helps you with the continuity of your cutting and folding, okay? So what you want to do is you want to go ahead and fold it. All right. I know that they're lined up because when I pull it in, they line up with my thing, my line. So now I can work on lining up my fabric where the top layer and the bottom layer are evenly, use even stripes. Now, most of the time, what would help out is if you true up your fabric, meaning you cut off the part of the top layer of your fabric to where everything is even. Okay, so, and also when you're dealing with stripes and plaids and things like that, you want to have extra fabric because sometimes you want to make sure that you can move your pattern pieces where you need to move them in order to get this same cut and line pattern on each piece. Okay, so what we're doing here is lining up our fabric. As you see at the top here, it's a little bit uneven. You see how that yellow cuts off there? So when you true up your fabric, it would be a little bit, you know, you can cut along that black line right there or whatever line that is even all the way from the selvage to selvage edge, okay? The red line would probably be the best one to use. So what you want to do is work on making sure your fold is along that line, and it looks pretty much even across here, across the width that you're folding it, and you want to make sure that all the lines are lined up. Okay, so that when you cut it, let's say for instance, when I cut this, I'm going to show you an example. When I cut this, as you see, the line is even across the entire pattern piece. And it is at the right hand piece. So this is the front, this is the back. We'll line it up. See, you see how that front and that back, they have the same cuts. This is the front, this is the back, and it's the same cut. You see how that lines up? When I line these two pieces up together to sew them together, it'll be already lined up. All right. So okay, do you see how that is? Everything's even. You can see how the yellow matches up with the yellow bottom, blue, blue, red, red, black. Okay, you can see how everything's lining up. Now another way to know that your bottom and your top are lined up is if you take your fabric and then you take the top layer and you fold it on itself, fold it back on itself, and everything should be lined up. Okay, all right, so let's put that back. Now you don't want to stretch your fabric in order to make it match up. You want it to lie down without any tension on it, okay? It needs to be relaxed, and it doesn't need to have any tension on it, okay? Because that will affect the fit when you, and the way that it sews up when you go to sew up your fabric. All right, now the pattern that I'm going to show you all on is the G pattern, the GEE pattern by George and Ginger. You can get this pattern for free if you watch her video on YT, if y'all know what that is, y'all know, YouTube. Okay, if you watch it on her YouTube channel, and she's also here on TikTok, but I don't know if she posted the code or anything like that on her TikTok channel. But anyways, you can get this pattern for free. And I really like it because it gives you a great fit. They go from kid sizes all the way up to, I want to say 5XL. She's really inclusive with her sizes. Anyways, now, when you are doing your pattern, so you want to make sure that there's a little bit of room, or make sure you have the right width for your pattern piece. All right, so we're going to continue to line it up like that. Am I boring you, child? She had a big old yawn. Well, I did give her that nighttime medicine. All right, so again, I had to readjust. Make sure. Yes, we are good to go. Now, when you put your piece down, you want to determine your dominant line. On this case, I want the red to show through. I'm going to do a black neckline. And if I do long sleeve on this, I'll probably do a black cuff on that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the red as my dominant line. So what I would do is I would line up the tip of my shoulder to that dominant line right there. Tip of my shoulder to the dominant line, okay? And I would do that on all the pieces. So this is the back piece, tip of the shoulder right here on the dominant line. And it doesn't matter where you're at in your fabric, the dominant line is always the dominant line. So if I were to place it here, it will still line up with my front piece. If I would place it here, it'll still line up with my front piece because I'm using the dominant line and the colors are repeating itself, and so it'll have the same pattern on all the pieces. So this is my front piece. All right. Don't look at how raggedy my pattern is because I've been using it a lot. I need to tape it right there. So this is my front piece. I would do the same. All right. And that tip right there, I would lay it on the fold. That tip of this pattern will be lined up. Now you don't want to line it up here or there or there. The thing about sewing is that if you choose to do something, you need to do it consistently throughout the whole pattern. So if you use a 3/8 seam allowance, and with the exception of those special steps that require you to do a different seam allowance, then you need to do that seam allowance throughout the whole thing. If you're going to cut and use this as your dominant line, you need to line it up the way that you line it up on the first piece that you cut every time. So if you want to line it up here, you can do it here. I would use the whole dominant width of the dominant line. That's how I do it. And then so I wouldn't cut the front piece here and then the back piece like that. Okay, I would cut all of them with the corner of the top shoulder at this point right here on this thing on the top of my dominant line. Now if you don't want to do that, I mean, it is your choice. You can use this dominant line and say, hey, I want all of them here like that, okay? But to really ensure that you get the dominant line, make sure you line up your fold and then line up that top edge like that. Okay. All right, now I have lined up my fabric to the width of the sleeve piece, And it will be the same. I would use the red line as my dominant, and then I would make sure that my grain line is parallel to my fold, because in this case I'm doing a mirrored piece, right? So I would line up my piece here. I don't know if y'all would see that. This is the mid mark, and I would line up that mid mark piece here. Now, as you see, this sleeve piece is going a little bit above the dominant line, and that is okay, because we are marking that center mark is what needs to be at the top of my dominant line, okay? And that will give you a nice piece when you sew it together, okay? So make sure your top and bottom layers are evenly distributed. And so when you cut it out, you know, I highly suggest that you use weights on it when you cut it out, or pin it very well when you cut it out, and it will give you some really good results, okay? All right. That's for even stripes. Thank you for watching my tutorial on sewing with even stripes. I hope this helps you. Here is an example of how I did my even stripes.